My son told me I couldn't sit in the front row at my granddaughter's college graduation unless I signed over my house to him first. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "Dad, family seating is for people who act like family, and family shares their assets." 20 minutes before the ceremony started, when I walked into that auditorium with Peterson Real Estate and a for sale sign under my arm, Tyler learned that some games have consequences he never saw coming. If you've ever had family members try to hold precious moments hostage to get what they want from you, grab your coffee and settle in, because this story's about boundaries, manipulation, and what happens when you call someone's bluff with a nuclear option. I'm Bob Mitchell, and at 69 years old, I discovered that sometimes the best way to keep your family from controlling you is to remove what they think gives them power over you. You see, Emma's graduation from nursing school was supposed to be one of the proudest days of my life. I'd helped pay for her education, supported her through 4 years of studying and clinical rotations, and she'd become the kind of young woman who makes an old man believe the world's going to be okay. The ceremony meant everything to me, and Tyler knew it. What my son didn't know was that I'd been planning my own exit strategy for months, watching him and his wife Jessica circle my property like vultures, making comments about how impractical it was for me to live alone in such a big house. They'd been building their case for why I should transfer ownership to them, piece by piece, conversation by conversation. The house had been my sanctuary for 37 years. The place where I'd raised Tyler and his sister after their mother died, where I'd built a workshop in the basement and a garden in the backyard. But lately, it had started feeling more like a prison, with Tyler using every family event as leverage to pressure me into signing it over to him and Jessica. If you enjoy stories about entitled adult children who learn that manipulation has limits, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. I've got nearly 7 decades of experience dealing with people who think love comes with conditions. And trust me, the lesson I taught Tyler at Emma's graduation is one he'll be talking about in therapy for years. That graduation ceremony was supposed to celebrate Emma's achievement, but Tyler had turned it into another battlefield in his campaign to take control of my life and my property. By the time the dean called Emma's name to receive her diploma, Tyler had learned that holding family moments hostage is a game that works both ways, and some of us play for keeps. Emma had been the light of my life since the day she was born 22 years ago. The granddaughter who still called me every Sunday and asked for my advice about everything from school projects to relationship problems. When she'd gotten accepted into the nursing program at State University, I'd been so proud I'd cried right there in my kitchen reading her acceptance letter. Tyler and Jessica had made it clear from the beginning that they expected me to help with Emma's college expenses, and I'd been happy to contribute. Between tuition payments, textbook costs, and living expenses, I'd invested nearly $40,000 in my granddaughter's education over 4 years. Every penny had been worth it to see her grow into the compassionate, intelligent woman she'd become. But somewhere along the way, Tyler had started treating my financial support like an investment that entitled him to returns beyond just Emma's success. He'd begun making comments about how much money I was throwing around on education when I could be making smarter decisions about my assets and estate planning. The pressure had started subtly, with suggestions that I should consider downsizing, moving somewhere with more support services, giving Tyler power of attorney just in case something happened. Jessica would walk through my house making comments about the potential of the property, how much it could be worth with the right improvements, how wasteful it was for one person to occupy so much space. Every family dinner became an opportunity for them to plant seeds about my future, my security, my need to plan ahead, while I was still healthy enough to make good decisions. They'd frame it as concern for my well-being, but I could see the calculation behind their caring. They wanted my house, and they were willing to use my love for Emma to get it. The first direct demand had come 6 months before Emma's graduation. when Tyler sat me down for what he called a family financial planning session. He'd brought charts and documents showing how transferring the house to him would benefit everyone. Tax advantages for me, security for Emma's future, peace of mind for the whole family. When I'd politely declined, explaining that I wasn't ready to give up my independence, Tyler's tone had shifted. "Dad, you're being selfish about this. We're trying to help you, and you're making decisions that could hurt Emma's future. What happens when you can't maintain the house anymore? What happens when you need care and there's nothing left to pay for it?" That conversation had opened my eyes to Tyler's strategy. Use my love for Emma as leverage, make me feel guilty for wanting to keep my own property, frame my independence as selfishness that would somehow harm my granddaughter. It was emotional manipulation wrapped in financial planning, and I'd started making my own plans for how to respond. What Tyler didn't know was that I'd already spoken to Emma about his pressure campaign, and she'd been horrified to learn that her father was using her education as a weapon to try to extract property from me. "Grandpa, I never asked him to do that," she'd said with tears in her eyes. "I don't want you to give up your home for me. I just want you to be happy." The graduation seating ultimatum came exactly 1 week before Emma's ceremony, delivered during what was supposed to be a pleasant family dinner at Tyler and Jessica's house. Emma had been excited, talking about her plans after graduation, her job interviews at local hospitals, her hopes for starting her career helping people. "Dad, we need to talk about the seating arrangements for Emma's graduation," Tyler said as Jessica served dessert. His tone was casual, but I could see the calculation in his eyes. "The university only gives each student a limited number of front-row family seats, and we need to make some decisions about who gets priority." Priority. Like attending my granddaughter's graduation was a privilege I needed to earn instead of a right I'd already paid for, with 4 years of love, support, and financial contribution to her education. "I assumed I'd be sitting with the family," I said carefully, already sensing that this was another one of Tyler's manipulation tactics disguised as logistics. "Well, that's what we need to discuss," Jessica chimed in with that sweet smile that never reached her eyes. "Family seating is really for immediate family and people who've made significant investments in Emma's future. We want to make sure the people who sit there really deserve to be recognized as her support system. Significant investments. Deserve to be recognized. The implications were clear. They were questioning whether my $40,000 in education funding and 22 years of grandparental love qualified me for a front-row seat at my own granddaughter's graduation. Emma looked mortified. "Mom, Dad, Grandpa has to sit with us. He's been more supportive than anyone. He comes to all my clinical presentations. He helps me study. He's the one who—" "Emma, this is an adult conversation about family priorities and financial planning," Tyler interrupted. "Your grandfather understands that family support needs to be mutual. Right, Dad?" Mutual. There was the trap he was setting, the condition he was trying to attach to my seat at Emma's graduation. I could see where this was heading, but I let him spell it out anyway. "What exactly are you saying, Tyler?" "I'm saying that family is about commitment, Dad. It's about showing that you're invested in our collective future, not just holding onto assets out of stubbornness or pride. Emma's graduation is a celebration of family achievement, and family seating should reflect family unity." Jessica nodded along like he was making perfect sense. "Bob, we've been trying to help you see the bigger picture for months. The house transfer would show Emma that you're committed to the family's long-term stability. It would be such a meaningful gesture to announce at her graduation celebration." Announce at her graduation celebration. They wanted to use Emma's achievement as the backdrop for their property grab, to turn her moment of triumph into their moment of acquisition. "So, let me understand this correctly," I said slowly, wanting to make sure I was hearing their ultimatum clearly. "You're saying I can't sit in the front row at my granddaughter's graduation unless I sign over my house to you?" "We're saying that family seating is for people who act like family," Tyler replied, his voice taking on the hard edge that meant he thought he had me cornered. "And family means sharing resources, planning for the future together, making sacrifices for each other's benefit." Emma was crying now, horrified that her graduation was being turned into a hostage situation. But Tyler and Jessica seemed oblivious to her distress, too focused on their manipulation to notice they were destroying the very family unity they claimed to be protecting. That night, I drove home and made 2 phone calls. The first was to Emma, to assure her that I would be at her graduation no matter what her parents said. The second was to Peterson Real Estate to schedule an appointment for the following morning. The week between Tyler's ultimatum and Emma's graduation was a masterclass in emotional manipulation disguised as family concern. Tyler called me every other day with updates about the seating arrangements, each conversation designed to make me feel like I was being unreasonable and selfish for not transferring my property. "Dad, I've been thinking about our conversation, and I want you to know that this isn't about the house," he said during one particularly calculated phone call. "It's about trust, about showing Emma that her family is united and committed to her future. When she sees you sitting in the back rows with strangers instead of with us, what message does that send about our family's values? Our family's values." Tyler was reframing his extortion attempt as a lesson in values, making me the villain in Emma's story if I didn't surrender my home to prove my love for her. It was psychological warfare wrapped in concern for his daughter's feelings. Jessica joined the campaign with her own phone calls, each one more transparently manipulative than the last. "Bob, I hope you'll reconsider your position before Saturday. Emma keeps asking me why you don't want to sit with the family, and I don't know what to tell her. She's starting to think you're not as excited about her graduation as she hoped." Emma keeps asking. She's starting to think. Jessica was either lying about Emma's concerns, or Emma was being fed false information about my reasons for refusing Tyler's demands. Either way, they were using my granddaughter's emotions as weapons against my independence. But the conversation that sealed Tyler's fate came 3 days before graduation, when he showed up at my house unannounced with a folder full of property transfer documents and an expression that suggested he thought he'd finally cornered me into submission. "Dad, I brought the paperwork for the house transfer," he said, walking into my living room like he owned it already. "I figured we could get this taken care of before Saturday, so there's no awkwardness at the graduation ceremony. Emma's been so stressed about the family tension, and this would really put her mind at ease." Emma's been stressed about the family tension. Tyler was using his daughter's anxiety he'd created with his manipulation, as justification for pressuring me into signing over my home. "Tyler, I've told you repeatedly that I'm not ready to transfer the house," I said. But he was already spreading documents across my coffee table like a lawyer presenting a settlement offer. "Dad, you're not thinking clearly about this. The tax implications alone should convince you that this is the smart move. Plus, Emma's going to need help getting started in her career, maybe buying her first home someday. This house could be the foundation of her financial security." Emma's financial security. He was trying to make me feel guilty for potentially harming my granddaughter's future by refusing to give him my property now. The manipulation was so blatant, it would have been impressive if it wasn't so disgusting. "And if I don't sign these papers," Tyler's mask slipped just slightly, revealing the cold calculation underneath his performance of family concern, "then I guess you'll be watching Emma graduate from wherever the ushers decide to seat you. Family seating is reserved for family members who act like family, Dad. I thought I'd made that clear." That's when I knew Tyler had gone too far. He was willing to poison Emma's graduation day, to turn her moment of achievement into a battleground for his greed, to make her watch her grandfather be excluded from the family section because he wouldn't surrender his home to extortion. "Get out of my house, Tyler," I said quietly. "Take your papers and your ultimatums and get out. And don't come back unless you're ready to apologize for trying to hold your daughter's graduation hostage to steal your father's property. He left angry, muttering threats about how I'd regret being so stubborn, how I was going to miss Emma's big day because of my pride. But he'd miscalculated something important. He'd assumed I cared more about sitting in the front row than I did about teaching him a lesson about consequences. He was about to learn just how wrong he was about his old man's priorities. For the 3 days between Tyler's visit and Emma's graduation, I didn't take his calls or respond to Jessica's increasingly frantic text messages about seating arrangements and family unity. Instead, I spent my time meeting with Peterson Real Estate and preparing for the most public lesson about consequences that Tyler would ever receive. Peterson was intrigued when I explained what I wanted to do. "Mr. Mitchell, are you sure about this timing? Putting a house on the market during a family celebration is unusual." "Peterson, my son has spent months trying to manipulate me into giving him this house by using family events as leverage. It's time he learned that games have consequences, and some consequences are more public than others." We spent 2 days preparing the listing, getting photographs taken, determining fair market value, and drawing up all the paperwork I'd need to put the house on the market immediately. Peterson even agreed to meet me at the university on graduation day, bringing everything we'd need to make the listing official right there in the parking lot. I also called Emma directly, something I probably should have done earlier in this whole mess. "Sweetheart, I need you to know that no matter what your father says, I will be at your graduation. I'm going to be there to watch you get that diploma, and I'm going to be proud of you no matter where I'm sitting. Grandpa, I don't understand why Dad is being so weird about the seating. I told him I want you in the front row with us, but he keeps saying it's complicated and depends on family decisions. I don't understand." Family decisions. Tyler hadn't even told his daughter the truth about what he was demanding from me. Emma had no idea that her father was trying to extort property from her grandfather, using her graduation as leverage. "Emma, your father wants me to give him my house as a condition for sitting with the family at your graduation. He thinks he can use your special day to pressure me into signing over my property." The silence on the other end of the phone lasted almost 30 seconds. When Emma spoke again, her voice was shaking with rage. "He's what? Grandpa, that's insane, that's horrible. How could he do that to you? How could he do that to me?" "Sweetheart, don't worry about it. I have a plan that's going to teach your father about consequences, and you're going to get to see your old grandpa still has some fight left in him." Saturday morning came bright and clear, perfect weather for a graduation ceremony and for executing a real estate transaction in a university parking lot. Peterson met me at the campus entrance at 10 a.m., 2 hours before the ceremony, with all the paperwork we'd prepared. "Are you ready for this, Mr. Mitchell?" he asked as we walked toward the auditorium where families were already gathering. "Peterson, I've never been more ready for anything in my life. Tyler wanted to play games with family events. Let's show him how the game ends." Tyler and Jessica were standing near the entrance to the auditorium when I arrived, checking their phones and looking around nervously like they were expecting me to show up with my tail between my legs, ready to negotiate for a decent seat at my granddaughter's graduation. What they weren't expecting was for me to arrive with Peterson Real Estate and a manila folder full of documents that would change everything. "Dad, you made it," Tyler said with obvious relief, probably thinking he'd won our standoff. "I was worried you were going to miss Emma's big day over our little misunderstanding about seating arrangements." Little misunderstanding. He was trying to minimize his extortion attempt, to make it sound like we'd had a minor disagreement about logistics, instead of him trying to hold his daughter's graduation hostage to steal my house. "Oh, I wouldn't miss Emma's graduation for anything," I replied. "In fact, I brought some paperwork of my own to take care of while we're here." That's when Tyler noticed Peterson standing behind me with his realtor's folder and professional demeanor. His face went white as he started to process what he was seeing. "Dad, who is this?" "Tyler, meet Peterson from Peterson Real Estate." Peterson, this is my son Tyler, the one I told you about, who's been so concerned about me holding on to my house. Peterson stepped forward with the kind of professional smile that real estate agents perfect for closing deals. Nice to meet you, Tyler. Your father has been telling me about your interest in his property situation. I think you'll be pleased to know we're resolving it today. Resolving it how? Jessica asked, but her voice suggested she already suspected the answer would be something she didn't like. We're putting the house on the market, I said, pulling the listing agreement out of my folder, effective immediately. Peterson thinks we can have it sold within a week, maybe sooner, given the current market conditions. The look on Tyler's face was priceless, shock, rage, and panic, all fighting for control of his expression. Dad, you can't be serious. You're going to sell the house. Just like that. Just like that, I confirmed, signing the listing agreement right there in front of the auditorium entrance, while other families walked by on their way to celebrate their graduates. Tyler, you were absolutely right about one thing. It's time for me to make some changes in my living situation. But we never agreed to you selling it. We wanted you to transfer it to us. You wanted me to give you my house as payment for sitting in the front row at my granddaughter's graduation. That's extortion, son, and I don't negotiate with extortionists. I solve extortion problems by removing what they think gives them leverage over me. Peterson handed me a copy of the signed listing agreement, and I tucked it into my jacket pocket like it was the most natural thing in the world. The house will be listed online within the hour. Peterson's projecting a sale within 5 days, possibly sooner if we get multiple offers. What are you going to do with the money? Jessica asked, clearly calculating whether there was still some way to benefit from this disaster. I'm moving to Sunset Palms Resort and Spa, I said with a smile that felt better than any front row seat ever could. It's a luxury retirement community about an hour north of here. Golf course, swimming pool, daily housekeeping, gourmet meal service. I figure I'll use the proceeds from the house sale to fund about 20 years of living like a king. Tyler looked like he might be sick. 20 years? Dad, what about Emma's future? What about family financial security? What about inheritance planning? What about not trying to extort property from your father using family events as leverage? I replied. Tyler, you wanted to play games with Emma's graduation, to use her achievement as a weapon against my independence. Well, congratulations. You played the game perfectly, and this is how the game ends. That was 2 years ago, and it turned out to be the most liberating decision I'd made since retiring. The house sold in 4 days for $15,000 over asking price, and I moved into Sunset Palms the following month. Tyler and Jessica had to watch their inheritance evaporate into resort living, golf lessons, spa treatments, and gourmet dining. Emma graduated with honors, by the way, and I got to watch from the 3rd row. Not because Tyler relegated me there, but because that's where Peterson and I chose to sit after completing our real estate transaction in the parking lot. The distance didn't matter. Seeing her cross that stage and receive her diploma was worth every penny I'd spent on her education and every dollar I'd never leave to her manipulative father. Tyler tried to reconcile about 6 months after the house sale. Once he realized that his manipulation tactics had cost him a $400,000 inheritance. He showed up at Sunset Palms with apologies and explanations about stress and financial pressure, but they sounded hollow after what he'd put Emma and me through. Dad, I made a mistake, he said during one of his visits to my luxury apartment overlooking the golf course. I was worried about the future, about providing for Emma, about making sure you were taken care of. I handled it badly, but my intentions were good. Good intentions. Tyler was trying to reframe his extortion attempt as misguided concern, but some actions can't be undone with retroactive good intentions. You don't get to hold family moments hostage and then claim you were trying to help the family. Emma visits me every few weeks, usually bringing her nursing school friends to enjoy the resort's amenities. She's never once complained about the inheritance she'll never receive, never suggested I was wrong to sell the house her father tried to steal. Grandpa, I'm just happy you're finally living for yourself instead of worrying about people who don't appreciate you, she told me during one visit. The money's lasting longer than I expected, thanks to the resort's group rates and my newfound interest in activities that don't require property ownership. Golf, swimming, book clubs, art classes. Turns out retirement is a lot more fun when you're not spending it defending your assets from family members who see you as an obstacle to their financial security. Most importantly, I've learned that sometimes the best way to deal with family manipulation is to remove what they're trying to manipulate you for. Tyler wanted my house so badly he was willing to hold his daughter's graduation hostage to get it. Well, now nobody gets the house, and everybody gets to live with the consequences of his choices. The lesson cost Tyler $400,000 in inheritance, but it was worth every penny to teach him that love isn't conditional, and family support can't be extorted through emotional blackmail. Some boundaries are worth defending at any cost, and some games are only worth playing if you're willing to play for keeps. Have you ever had family members try to hold precious moments hostage to get something from you? Share your story in the comments below. And if this story inspired you to stand up to family manipulation, hit that subscribe button. I've got 69 years of experience dealing with people who mistake love for leverage, and I'm always happy to share what I've learned. Remember, folks, the best response to extortion is to remove what someone thinks gives them power over you. Sometimes that means selling the house and moving to a resort where nobody can use your property as a weapon against your happiness.